Hello, I'm Dave Speakman. I'm here today with my friend Darren Glover, who's come over for a bit of a jam. And we're going to talk about a couple of things, but the main thing that we're going to talk about now is a question that I get asked, and I know you've been asked this before. How do you become a guitar teacher? Me and Darren have been having a little bit of a jam today. We've not really played together for at least 6 months, I would say, for some
I've
reason.
played for 6 months.
So do excuse any of the playing that you might hear that's wrong. But yeah, it's an interesting question. How do you become a guitar teacher? I mean, essentially the thing that I would think is that to become a guitar teacher, you start teaching guitar. Now that might sound slightly facetious, but it's the truth really. The only thing that defines whether you do something is that you do it.
Yeah.
And if you do it, then you're doing it. In terms of how you become a guitar teacher in a high school or a college or a university, I suppose that's probably more what people are asking, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I personally, I don't know about you, I started teaching guitar to one of my mate's brothers when, I'd only been playing guitar for a couple of years, and I started teaching them. They were just kids, and they're just sort of like, his dad gave me a $5 to show him a few chords or whatever. That's how I started teaching. I wouldn't say that was starting teaching professionally though.
No.
That's the main thing that people are asking, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I get asked a lot, how do you get, the peripatetic music teaching gig? How do you get college teaching? How do you get university work? How do you get private work at home? There's loads of ways it happens. I mean, I kind of fell into it through playing. So I went into a music shop years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I say years ago, it is years ago, I was 30. Well, it was years ago. And I'd never taught really. I mean, I gave a few lessons at Leeds College of Music in the 90s and, in the mid to late 90s. But I'd never taught, I just played bass, gigs and things like that. And then I went into a music shop and the guy in there knew who I was because I'd been there buying equipment and he heard me play, he knew I was a professional player. And he said, I don't think you're going to be interested in this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. I said, what is it? He said, you fancy doing a little bit of bass teaching? I was like, I don't know, I don't really teach bass. And I said, well, let me have a think about it. So I had to think about it, but he got back in touch with me that evening, he rang me up. He says, what do you think? I said, go on, I'll give it a shot then. He said, well, it's on a Saturday afternoon. I was like, oh, that's not a good time. But I thought, well, go on, I'll just do it. I'll have a go. So I did a little bit of teaching, a couple of hours on a Saturday, and I quite enjoyed it. Yeah. It was the first time I'd ever seen tab. I'd never seen this kid brought in this sheet of paper with lines and telephone numbers all over it, and I was like, what the hell's that?
Well, professionally no one uses tab at all, do they? So
no, I'd only ever, because I'd never taught, I'd only ever worked I've been through like a music school and stuff, I suppose, and played professionally. Everything was musical notation. So, and still to this day I struggle with the tab thing, find it difficult. But there you go, I've got my views about that. But yeah, so that was how I got into the teaching. That was my little journey into teaching. From there, I got so much into it that I got a place in a college, teaching in a college. Yeah. And then from there, schools, and then, I got to know the local music service, and it grew from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, I did some teaching when I was at university, again, studying music. I did some teaching on a Saturday just back at my parents' house. And they were majoritively, it started out with friends' brothers, like I was saying before, and people like that really. They were friends' brothers and then their friend and then another one of their friends, and that built up into a little practice. But then I suppose the thing that kicked it off for me in a bigger way was when I finished university, I applied to a teaching agency who had some schools and kind of immediately picked up 3 or 4 days teaching, which when you've gone from just sort of doing the sort of gigs that you do when you graduate, which was sort of like 100 quid gigs and a lot of little jazz bar gigs and stuff for a lot less than 100 quid, and and gigging my own material, which tended to cost me money, if anything, to straight away being in a job that was as well paid as peripatetic work. It was quite a big deal for me actually to get that work, and it meant that I could buy my own car, it meant that I could buy my own PA system and then get better gigs and move things ahead. So I think some people have seen teaching as almost as a negative thing. I've always found it to be quite a positive experience for myself.
Yeah.
You know, that it feels like, especially when you feel like you're helping someone,
Definitely.
and you get a student who it really works for them, and you can see the excitement in their face as they discover a thing or they make a discovery. And I think that's a really important thing in someone's life. My guitar teacher when I was a kid, Paul, was certainly a massive influence on me, and still is, even though I've not spoke to him for years, but I still think about things that he said in my lessons. And then other teachers that I've had over the years, you know,
That's
people
brilliant.
who've taught me.
Yeah.
I think you play quite a large role, particularly in kids. You play quite a large role in their life if they're into music and they're into the guitar.
Yeah.
You have a real opportunity to help someone
Definitely.
to learn something correctly.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that people wonder about, though, is what qualifications you need. I mean, both you and I are educated to, I mean, I've got a degree and a postgraduate diploma. You've got a degree and a master's
degree.
and some qualifications in education as well.
I've got a
don't you?
full teaching qualification as well.
Yeah.
PGCE,
Yeah.
master's degree, and degree.
You don't need a PGCE.
No.
You certainly don't need a PGCE to teach. And I know
There are some qualifications out there what you can have. There is a
I've
teaching
had guitar lessons
qualification.
before, though, off people who didn't have any qualifications.
Doesn't matter,
and they
does
were-
it?
And they were great. I think if you're teaching in school and you're teaching children, it's really important that people have done some sort of safeguarding course. Is it DBS?
Yeah,
it's
they've got the
called now?
DBS checks and
So you need to be on the
safeguarding,
DBS register, which you can do through a school, essentially. And I think most schools, actually, if you wanted to teach privately, I think if you went into most high schools, they would allow you to pay to do it and be registered through the school, I would have thought.
you've got to get registered, but I think these days they've changed the way the DBS works.
Right, okay.
So now you apply for your DBS, you get a certificate, but you also pay an extra £14, which renews that certificate, because you used to have to every 3 years renew a DBS.
Yeah.
And I think it is now, don't quote me on this, but I think it actually just insures you in a way. You've got the DBS, not the establishment that you're working for.
That's an important thing to say, really, because the safeguarding course essentially protects you as a teacher.
It does.
It doesn't protect the student, because unless you think, if you think you're a danger to the students, then please don't teach. You know. But it protects you because then you know how you should respond to certain things, and you know certain telltale signs of essentially if kids aren't being treated very well.
And some children, can come to you as well. You might have a special relationship with the child, and a close relationship might be a child who really likes the music. They feel like they can speak to you. You've got to know how to deal with any problem. If that child had any problems, and they came to you, you have to know the correct protocols to follow.
Absolutely, yeah. Otherwise, you could end up
like incriminating yourself in some respect.
That's really dangerous.
Just simple things like being in practice rooms and having windows and doors so that people can see, keeping doors open and stuff. It all sounds crazy these days, but
the safeguarding courses are easy enough to do. I think you can even do them online, can't you?
I'm just about to do a new one myself.
Yeah, you do it every 2 years or so, don't you, generally?
Yeah.
And the DBS thing, I think it's every 3 years. I can't remember. Basically, when
it's not. Well, if you get the renewable £14 renewable ticket or whatever it is, it just checks your name, and then what it does, it just renews every 3 years, and you don't have to retake it again. It just keeps renewing it until there was ever something what got put on there, then that'll be different. But you won't be teaching that.
And people ask questions like, do you have to have grade 8 to teach or whatever? Now, I have grade 8, I'm sure you have grade 8, but it's one of those things that you do when you're a kid, isn't it? But I don't think you have to have grade 8, but obviously you need to be a lot better than grade 8 on your instrument, really, for somebody to want to have lessons with you, presumably.
Yeah, I think about it in all different ways. I actually didn't take the grade 8 classical guitar.
No.
But I teach grade 8 and beyond classical guitar.
Yeah, because you're beyond that level on the instrument.
You can just play it. Same with the jazz guitar, same with the bass, anything like that. There wasn't even any exams you could take on the bass. You get the rock school stuff now. But it's just are you good? Are you a good musician? Are you approachable and friendly? Are you good at getting your ideas across? Are you good at getting information across? Do you choose the best things to teach academically? Do you choose good songs to teach which help improve the musician who you're teaching, and also enjoyment.
And it's about being encouraging, isn't it, and making it fun for them. So
Yeah.
I always think as well, for people choosing a music teacher, that it's important to try and pick somebody who does what you want to do as well. So if you want to learn classical piano, for example, it's probably not the best idea to go and ask the local organist for lessons, because they'd be a great organ player but not a great classical pianist. But and vice versa, you know. So say if you wanted to learn rock guitar, go and see somebody who's out gigging, working as a rock guitarist.
Yeah, providing they're
not somebody who's a classical guitarist.
Yeah.
You want classical guitarists? Go and see a classical guitarist. I mean, the people who I've had lessons with, particularly getting older, were people who I saw gigging, and then I approached them and asked them for lessons. And that's important, that you have lessons with somebody who's actually working as a musician, I think, and not.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some good teachers who just teach, aren't there?
But great. Yeah, some. I mean, it depends also. If you've got if you've got children yourself or anything, you want to send them for lessons, then whoever's good at getting that child interested in music, doesn't matter if they do gigs. But as you're getting older and you learn, and if you want to take it more seriously and learn the right things and play properly, then somebody who gigs. But that guy who's gigging has still got to be pretty decent at the craft of educating or teaching somebody, should I say. Yeah. And it's a two-way passage, really, because when I first got into teaching, I could play, but people said, "What was that? What you did then?" Like, "Oh, I just did this." I had to start breaking down everything I did. So I improved as a musician once I became a teacher or tutor of music or bass or whatever I was teaching. I taught composition and everything. But it would make me think really about what I could play, what I could do, because I just learnt. And then you don't really think about what you're doing. You're just doing it. You're just enjoying it. But when they actually come to showing somebody else, you've got to find ways, and you don't want to find Mickey Mouse ways of doing it. You want to find good, informative and fun ways of, say, learning a raking technique on the bass. That I did videos on this because I thought, it's such a natural thing to do.
Yeah, you should definitely check out Darren's YouTube channel. It's phenomenal.
But you see guys, they're trying to come this way and they're picking each note and it sounds clunky, they're fine going up, coming back down, they've not got this raking technique and things like that. And I only really found out about that because I had to sit down and analyse exactly how mine was sounding much better than the students' was. And then when I found out, I do this, I do finger 1, 2, 3, and then and I've worked it out so I can actually write on a sheet of paper, so right, you go home, practice that and come back next week.
You
and
find
then
that so often, don't you? You say what fingers would you use for this? And then you say some fingers, and then you grab your guitar and you play it and you go, actually no, play it like this. It makes sense because of, I suppose because of the process and the training that we've gone through ourselves. Things like that become very obvious, don't they?
Yeah.
And you know the right way to do things.
You do, and just, unravelling all that is great, because you really do start to think about what you're doing and simplifying stuff. And
so let's just go back a little bit, because we were talking about working in a music service, working in schools and colleges. Yeah. So a lot of the schools have their own teachers in, don't they? So it would be a case of approaching the schools. I would say that all of the teaching work that I do now was actually teaching work that I was asked to do, rather than that I applied for a job. It was something where somebody else worked there.
Word of mouth.
So it's worth, if you're a musician and you're gigging, it's worth asking your other friends who are gigging, who do peripatetic work, and wanting to get some teaching work.
Yeah, you can do it that way,
Can you put your eye out for it? I mean, I remember when I started working at one of the schools that I work at now, I literally was on the phone to somebody and I just said, I could just do with a little bit of teaching work. And he said, actually, I'm leaving this school in 2 months. Do you want the job? And it was just like that.
And that's great, because sometimes it's really tricky to get into. I work with a lot of student teachers.
Yeah.
Some of them are doing the PGCs at the Royal Northern College of Music. And so I mentor some of those guys. And when they've finished the PGC, I go through the process of helping them to get placements or giving them references and things like that. And they always ask me, how do you get in with the music service? How do I get a job? And they're actually formally going through the ads and looking for music service jobs. Say, such a council has got, they need a guitar teacher, or they need... So some of those are self-employed, some of them are on a contractual employed basis.
So they're like an actual employee. I mean,
you can become. Yeah, it used to be like that in all music services and teachers' paying
I've always been self-employed.
You will have been, because you come at it a bit later, as I did. There are still some music services offering employed positions, but I don't know. A proper job, but then you do actually need the PGCE for that.
Okay,
usually.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, these guys who I'm doing the mentoring with and stuff, they are actively looking for peripatetic music teaching jobs with councils and things like that. And it is tricky to find. I mean, you can get on sites like Music Mark and stuff like that.
Okay.
Have a look through there, you'll find jobs in music services all over the country. But there's not a lot of them, and like you say, there's a lot of word of mouth. That's how it happened for me, through really the gigging scene and knowing people, and then some guy in gig who's got a bit of day work in the school.
Having a little bit of a presence, isn't it, either online or just in the local scene of
definitely
the people. A lot of my students are people who see me playing and then ask me for lessons. Or the people who are having lessons in the school that I teach guitar at. So there's a constant supply of students when you're teaching a school, which is it's quite a good way of doing it, because it's during the day as well, isn't it? There's teaching in the
that's the
in the
beauty
schools
of
or
it.
the colleges. And as a musician, obviously we can work in the studio during the day, but most of our performance work tends to be in an evening, and it's nice to be able to work during the day as well.
And there's the pros and cons of peripatetic school teaching, is that you can actually work in the day. Private music teaching, again, is like the gigs really. You're only going to be working most of the time after school hours, because most of your students are going to be kids, school kids, college children, things like that.
You teach a few adults, don't you?
Adults, but still some of those guys have.
Predominantly.
But the thing is, with the younger kids, you've got a longer lifespan of lessons with the younger kids, as opposed to teaching with an adult who, sometimes they'll come and have a few lessons with you, or if you're teaching or having sessions with people who are already professional as well. I've got a couple of guys like that. You'll tend to find they only come for like 4 or 5 lessons, and they'll go away and practice that for a year. So the longevity of your tenure with them is...
Well, somebody who's better, actually, you can actually give them enough stuff to work on for several months in a 1 hour lesson, really, can't you? And then
you can
come back and see you.
But if you want to, have regular students, you want to be looking at, the younger end. Kids. I mean, I teach kids from my youngest is 5 years old and he's already doing his grade 1 classical guitar. That guy's he's a bit of a genius. Yeah,
it's amazing when you've got the young ones who do so well. I have a
so you've got to weigh up whether you want to do the private or the peripatetic. I do them both.
Yeah.
With the gigs and the recording as well. But
same. Yeah. I think that as a musician, if you want to make money, unless you're incredibly lucky and happen to become an overnight pop star or something like that, I think you tend to need to have a few strings to your bow and essentially have a portfolio career. Most working musicians do a little bit of teaching, some gigging, and some recording work and writing work. You write a lot of music, don't you, Darren?
Yeah, I'm a composer. Media music, and I've got a studio and stuff. Stuff for TV. But the thing is, it's not to be snubbed. The teaching. Some people, I don't want to be a teacher. Some of the best musicians in the world offer teaching. You can get lessons from you think of some of the guys in this country, like the great jazz players or the great rock players.
Yeah, Mike Walker teaches guitar.
All these guys teach, and you'll find when you do, I ask them sometimes, do you enjoy teaching? Very, very few of them say they don't enjoy it and they just do it to make money. They all say, I like it. I like passing it on. I like being involved with people and nurturing the next.
The way I like teaching, I gig to make money.
Yeah, that's right. I don't mind the teaching. Yeah, definitely. Good.
That was great. Thanks for coming down, Darren.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
If anybody has any questions, please do leave it in the comments below. If you could subscribe to my channel, that'd really help me out. And remember to like the video. We've got lots more content coming. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.